not even trying to get into politics here, but like you'd sit there and go, you're the president and you're mad about what a TV show is saying about you. And by the way, that was the previous 2 administrations. So it had nothing to do with who you like or who you don't like. Like they would call into producers to be like, both of our last administrations would have people that would call in to television stations to be like, I can't believe you said that. And I'm like, if the president can't get over it and it ruins his day, then, who's to say a 2-guard for the Sacramento Kings is going to be a little offended when somebody says his game sucks.
Hey guys, welcome on into Drinks with Binks. I'm Julie Stewart-Binks. This is the show that talks with the biggest and brightest stars in sports, entertainment, and media. And with football season starting and the NBA coming back, we had to request the presence of sports savant who knows everything about basketball and pretty much literally every sport and beyond. Host of the Ryen Russillo podcast on the Ringer Network. Also on Bill Simmons' podcast, formerly of ESPN, none other than Ryen Russillo. Thank you so much for joining us all the way from Manhattan Beach, and congratulations on everything that you have accomplished with The Ringer.
Yeah, thanks a lot. It's good to talk to you again. I think it's been a while. I think the last time, maybe the only time we ever saw each other was in Los Angeles. But, when I got the start time and I know the concept of the show, I felt a little guilty, but firing back drinks at 11 a.m. on an LA morning, a little tougher for me, so.
Well, other people have done it and they've probably regretted it. So cheers to you, my friend. We got some what do we got? You got a green juice there?
I got a green juice, yep. This one's disgusting. There's dandelions and pepper in it. So I don't know what it is. Like they've
what
got
does
it.
That even
I
mean?
think the whole juice industry is just laughing at us, being like, let's see how many more awful things we can put in there. And then people will think like, man, I feel great. So,
the most ridiculous thing. Like it was like charcoal. We're like, yeah, we need charcoal. Dandelion, as you mentioned, like whatever it is. Okay. Well, cheers to you, my friend. And great to have you on the show.
What do you got going on?
I just made a Gatorade Propel because we don't have any juice in this household. Got the whole, that's a free promo, by the way, what we do best on this show. The fridge has 0 in it because I've just never been here. But more importantly, we were talking about sports, but before we get there, I got some intel that you are a very big Below Deck fan. So
yes.
Where does that passion come from?
It was like all reality shows. I think I was stuck in a hotel during a trip years ago, and Bravo came on. The remote may have been on the ground, and I was like, this show's stupid. And then after 3 episodes, I was like, I can't believe the second Stu thinks she's better than the first Stu. Like, that's ridiculous. And I'm like, God, this primary guest is the worst. And then I'm like, I can't believe maybe she's going to hook up with the bosun. So I was in, and that's kind of my rule with any reality show. And that's why they work. It's like, you could sit there and be like, that's dumb. Why would I ever waste any time? And the fact is, I do watch so many games, like so many hours of basketball. And then when it has that overlap of college football and basketball, it just felt like a nice escape for about an hour to be like, hey, I'm on it. But then it was getting bad when I was seeing somebody, and then it was sort of like this thing that I was pretending that I was making this huge concession, being like, I guess I'll watch Below Deck again. And it was like 5 seasons later, and then she could tell. She's like, this says it's already been viewed on the DVR. Like, did you watch this when I wasn't here? Like, I thought you didn't even like it. And I was like, well, I just don't like Captain Lee because I think he's way too strict. But I guess I constantly just think about like, there's no way I could ever do it because the accommodations at this stage of my life, like I'm not going to share a bunk.
All right, we won't. We'll save that one for the next chapter of Ryen Russillo's life, as this chapter currently with The Ringer, these 2 years and change, dealing with also a global pandemic. But you've been with them. What has been maybe the best part about sort of revamping everything after over 10 years with ESPN?
Yeah, I mean, I was at ESPN almost 15. So I liked it. I grew up watching Kilborn 4 of the same Sports Centers in a row. I mean, it's just how we used to do it when we were in high school, when we were in college. We'd watch the same episode of Sports Center over and over again. We'd argue about who our favorite anchors were. We'd memorize the catchphrases because back then it was cool. And I remember the first job I had as an intern, I was working for a local affiliate, and I thought I wanted to be an anchor. And then I wrote something in a script for one of the anchors about like how the team shouldn't have traded for this guy, and he read it on the teleprompter because he trusted me enough to write his scripts at that point. And he came back. He's like, hey, good at it. He's like, don't write any opinion stuff ever in a script, in a news script. And he was right. And it kind of dawned on me. I was like, yeah, I guess I'm more of an opinion guy. I did some play-by-play. I sucked at it. And, after a bunch of years of doing radio, I got to try out at ESPN. And it really was a dream for somebody like me that cared about the place so much and grew up on it. And, for the people that are like, oh, I work there. And like, yeah, no, there's a lot of people that work there, but there's very few that are there 5 days a week in the hallways on the air, 15 to 20 hours a week. I mean, there's plenty of people that work there. I'm talking about on air, to be there every day for that many years, 10 years almost in that slot. And then to move away from that, have this abrupt thing. Because like then every waking moment was thinking about the radio show, because I would wake up, think about what I saw. I'd go in, I'd read, I'd make calls, I'd prep, and I'd do all these things. I'd go for 3 hours. The one break was I would go, work out, get some dinner, and then at 7 o'clock Eastern time, I'd watch games until 1 a.m. And I mean, that was basically 10 years on top of the weekend, where if it's football weekend, that's 20-something hours of football that you're watching. And then all the time, all you're doing is thinking about what you're going to say in the show. And that was it. Every waking minute, I basically was thinking about the show, which is obsessive. But even though, it was kind of an amicable parting, it wasn't like nasty or anything like that. The freedom that I have now is something that I probably should have tried to find a way to get a little bit earlier. But we know how tough these careers are. So you grind, you're competing with other people, you got to say yes to stuff all the time. But to be able to say, okay, I can do literally everything I want because I know there's trust in me, with Bill Simmons, who just knows what I'm capable of and just goes, hey, just do your thing. And so far it's worked. So that part of the stress has been removed, but you still want to do good shows. So you still put the time in. Right.
And now you just have a little bit more flexibility in terms of being able to also have a bit of a life, as you mentioned there. That sound like it's just a complete, overhaul of every waking moment that you possibly have. And that's what a lot of people who've worked there have said, kind of just like having to be every single second all in. We have to take a quick break, but there's a whole lot more I want to get to, especially about the NBA and about everything that you're doing with the Ringer. When we return on Drinks with Binks, guys, don't go anywhere. We got Ryen Russillo.
Hey, it's your girl, Shanae, woman K number 13 for the LA Sparks. You might also see me on ESPN. And I just had way lit drinks with Binks. You know what it is.
Hey guys, welcome on back to Drinks with Binks. I'm JSB, joined by the Ringer's Ryen Russillo. And Ryen, before we get into Ben Simmons, I got to ask you, what would surprise us about working with Bill Simmons?
I say this to everybody that asks about it. Very rarely people that are great at content, like Bill has been throughout his entire career, he's doing something right. We're talking about one of the premier voices in sports for 2 decades now. To be able to do that, but then also be somebody that is good instinctually with hiring. And what he did at Grantland, I think, is one of the most impressive things I've seen in media in the last 10 years. That newsroom was incredible. I was talking with somebody about it the other day, and I was like, it was like the '94 Expos. And it was just loaded with talent who, if you look at the foundation of that start of Grantland, and here's Bill, mapping this out with other people that, he's worked with for a long time, and what those people have gone on to do. And I never worked with Grantland or anything like that. I did like one feature a year for him. That's really hard to do. There's a lot of people that are great behind the scenes. There are a lot of people that are great in front of the camera. But usually when you're in front of the camera, you're somebody that's talking all the time, your ego is such that it makes you either difficult to work with, or you're just really good at your one thing. And he's shown now 2 times over since he's left ESPN that he has pretty good instincts in how to read markets and how to staff and do different things. So that's very hard to do. We've seen other people try to do it, and it was like immediately like, this isn't going to work. And I think what he did at Grantland is incrediable.
Well, that's a great way to talk about your boss. I would do that too if Pam Duckworth was being asked about on an interview with me. Lakers and Nets, and this is from an outside perspective. Also, thank you for mentioning Canadian baseball team in your last answer. But Lakers and Nets seem as though, from an outsider's perspective, that they are loading up and everyone else is just like playing for third right now. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, it felt like once everything was over last year, and you always feel like, you don't want to be dismissive of a team that just won a championship, but some titles feel different than others. And this one was last man standing. So in a way, even more props to Milwaukee for finding a way to fight through all of this. But I think you'd be lying to yourself if you thought Milwaukee was going to beat a healthy Nets team. I don't think they would have beaten the Nets if the Nets had 2 of the 3 guys, never mind all 3. And I would wonder, the Nets storyline all year was the numbers are incredible. The individual stretches that Durant and Harden and even Kyrie had when they were playing were ridiculous. The role pieces fit in perfectly because it's so much easier to be a role guy with those 3 guys offensively, bringing that much attention to them. But Julie, I didn't know because it kind of like it fights in the face of what the concept of basketball is, that you need time together. And they had played, I think, 9 games together. And now that I saw it all play out, I think the Nets would have smoked everybody. I really do. And I don't even know if they needed all 3 guys. So now they're deeper, and now they have had a little bit more time together. If you want to tell me, hey, the Nets are going to be hurt again, okay, fine. I'm not going to tell you you're wrong, but I'm not going to predict, they're more likely to be hurt than other teams. And, I wouldn't completely write off Milwaukee coming out of the East here. But at this point, if you're telling me everyone's healthy, even with the Lakers reloading, because remember, before the Lakers were falling off the start of last season, it felt like, hey, here's a team that just won a championship. They're better now. They were. I thought they were better. And then everybody starts getting hurt again for them. So if you want to tell me health isn't a factor, I still think it's the Nets above everybody else. And I think they're going to be even better. But it's a tough team to bank on their health because, look, Harden's usually always healthy, but maybe you shouldn't spend the entire offseason making sure you come in worst shape possible so that the team will trade you. I mean, what Harden did shouldn't be applauded. And maybe that caught up with him later on, or maybe it was a fluke thing, because he's usually, for whatever you think of Harden, he's always been incredibly durable. But if it's all equal, because I can't sit here and predict injuries, I think the Nets are the best team. Yeah, the Nets, when it was all done, I was like, you know what? That would have been scary if those guys stayed together. That's just how I felt.
I know. So Nets and Lakers potentially help. This is what we could see. Good year for Kyle Lowry to leave, I guess, from Toronto, because they're going to suck regardless. But no one cares about them because they're in Canada.
Hey, we don't... I don't know that you want me to talk about Kyle Lowry on your podcast with your audience in Toronto, because that turned into
I don't have an audience. It's like my mom. She's in Toronto, so yeah, maybe don't talk about it.
My mom still doesn't know what I do, so that's advantage Julie. But I said something about Kyle Lowry, and it was like, oh my gosh. I was like, Toronto. I thought I might even get flagged if I ever went across the border. But
no, it's actually true. There's a big Kyle Lowry stan base.
Oh, I'm aware.
And his mom on Twitter too is a big part of that. Let's talk Ben Simmons, because we know that is the topic du jour all the time. Where do you think he ends up, and whose fault is it that it didn't really work out in Philly?
Well, it's Ben Simmons' fault first. I mean, look, adapt your game. And he's never improved certain aspects. Like, even if you think Ben Simmons is this incredible talent, top 20 player, I think he's just kind of a difficult guy to gauge, because when you can't shoot and you have no desire and you look like you're afraid to even shoot because now you can't make free throws and it's in a playoff game and everyone can see it and it's not guessing where you are mentally. Like, it was so obvious with him that he was just scared. That's a huge problem. And so now, is he damaged forever? That's aggressive. We're talking about a guy in his mid-20s. But him not developing that part of his game, every offseason, these stupid Instagram videos where he hits a couple jumpers at LA Fitness and we're supposed to be like, oh my God, Ben Simmons is going to shoot this year. And then he doesn't even take those shots. That's on him first and foremost. And he signed a max extension with the Sixers. So if he really hated it that much, then don't take the extension. He would lose a lot of money. Nobody does that. And that's basically what happens down in the league. And it's been going on for years. Melo did it when he did an extension. It's like, look, I'll just sign the deal. I'll have the money down on paper and then I'll just command my way out. The difference here is that, I'm still confused how the public keeps talking about the Ben Simmons request, because he wants out. We all know that. Philly is going to stare him down. We'll see who gives in, because if he says he's not going to play, then they don't have to pay him. He could also say, hey, I'm hurt. Which has been done before by other players. We'll see. But, he has 4 years left. This is not Anthony Davis with even a year and a half what people got mad about. This isn't a guy with 1 year left like Harden coming in, although he had an option. I mean, usually in the past we were used to we were accepting of the player that was upset and only had a year left. It's like, hey, I'm not re-signing. Ben Simmons has 4 years left and is apparently telling the Sixers where he doesn't want to go. So this is unprecedented, okay? Nobody's ever done this before. And that's why it's like, wait, what leverage do you have? So if you were that upset about the situation with Philadelphia, and look, Doc could have been more supportive, Embiid could have been more supportive, Daryl Morey's not a pushover GM at all. He's a really good one, a lot of respect. He's not going to just give in. But
Right.
I think it starts with the player. And I think too often we try to find a way to blame everybody else except the person that we should start the blame with.
So then for Ben Simmons and for everyone around him, your trade leverage is so low, it would be in your best interest to try to stay, salvage it, and then figure out a new location?
I just have never thought he and Embiid fit together. I mean, honestly, like people that argue against it, there's some regular season stats. Hey, when they're on the court together, this is the plus minus. Hey, it's amazing. And you're like, okay, but tell me about the possessions of the last 4 or 6 minutes of a close playoff game. Like we can all see what happens. Ben pretends he's bringing the ball up. And then he gives it to somebody else. And then Ben's guy never defends him. And then there's all this traffic. I mean, it's just impossible. It's impossible to run your offense that way over and over and over again when there's somebody out there that nobody even pretends to respect. So it seems crazy to think, especially in a city like Philadelphia, where you go, we'll just run it back. And here we go. There's a lot of people think there's no way they'll ever do that. But if I were a GM, I wouldn't go, oh, no, the fans are going to be mean, so now I have to give this guy away, who still, despite the critiques of the game, in a certain setup, a little bit more freedom, surrounded by shooters. He's more the ball-dominant guy. He doesn't have a huge guy in the post who's terrific, and Embiid clogging everything up, where they kind of clog each other. There's a version of it where I think it could be better. But the biggest difference between a guy like Simmons and Giannis, even though Giannis can't shoot, Giannis is never afraid. Never afraid. And Simmons showed us against Atlanta he's afraid.
Certainly did. A lot to unpack there. Very exciting right now. Guys, don't go anywhere. We're drinking and binking with Ryen Russillo.
Hi, this is Thaddeus Young, and I just had drinks with Binks.
What's going on, everybody? Chris Bosch here, Hall of Fame inductee and an author. It's crazy. I just had drinks with Binks. Cheers.
Hey guys, welcome back to Drinks with Binks. I'm Julie Stewart-Binks, joined by the Ringers Ryen Russillo. And before we move on to some football, gotta ask, it feels as though a lot of NBA guys have been interacting and just being more involved on social media than in the past, and even compared to other athletes, but almost in sometimes a subversive way with the whole all-wash team and all this. Like, where do you think this like confidence online comes from, just with the NBA in particular?
I think when you see an NBA player go at somebody, like sometimes you just want to tell somebody to f off. That's it. So I don't think it's like this generation of player, but I think this generation of player has come up with seeing all this. Like, I can't believe where these guys would go into a halftime and check their mentions. Like, what an incredible waste of time, especially like when you're a pro athlete. But I've worked with people at the highest level that I'm like, you're broadcasting a special event and you're seeing what people are saying about what you're saying on TV while you still have 2 hours to go. Like, that's crazy to me. But we all did it on radio shows at the beginning. So when you think about it being at the NBA level, where these guys are 100 times more famous than any of us ever were just talking sports, they get it all the time, and then every now and then you just feel like, hey, I want to do this. And the problem is you kind of still can't really win. So I don't know that it's their confidence level being different. I think that it's the way they've come up as public figures. And, you can also do this too. You can have 100 people say something about you, and the one person that says something really nasty and stings, that's the one thing you focus on. So even with all the love, like LeBron is convinced like the media is against him, where I think there's a pretty good argument the media loves LeBron for the most part, except for a couple people, but he's focused on that stuff. So that is the newest thing. I think that's the biggest change and impact in how we see famous people, and in this case NBA guys, react publicly, because it's just something we've never seen before, but they've been used to it now for years.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I can't even imagine those guys seeing their mentions. Howard Stern spoke about that. He can't even see one bad thing about him, or else he'll just be like completely puddle on the floor, which is crazy to think about that.
That's Howard Stern. I remember reading this book about a presidential, and like, I'm not even trying to get into politics here, but like, you'd sit there and go, you're the president and you're mad about what a TV show is saying about you. And by the way, that was the previous 2 administrations. So it had nothing to do with who you like or who you don't like. Like, they would call into producers to be like, both of our last administrations would have people that would call in to television stations to be like, I can't believe you said that. And I'm like, if the president can't get over it and it ruins his day, then, who's to say a 2 guard for the Sacramento Kings is going to be a little offended when somebody says his game sucks.
It's tough. Yeah, you got to turn the old main mentions off and just put, like, I guess the verified ones on or something. But even those people are still gonna take you down. Speaking of taking down, I guess, great segue to you covered the Patriots for many years, and Cam Newton being cut and Mac Jones now being the guy. What do you think about the conversation surrounding this situation as someone who's, covered this team for a while?
There's two parts of the Cam thing that surprised me. For whatever you thought of Cam, the player, and I still think that MVP year is a little fluky for who he ended up being over his entire career. I mean, you can say, oh, no, he's hurt again. Okay, well, he's hurt. Already had COVID. Okay, fine. The Pats don't have weapons. That is true. It was not a good season last season. And then they went ahead and brought him back, and they actually paid him a few $1 million just to be. They ended up paying him $3.5 million before they even cut him. So I was kind of surprised they were that motivated to make it work again, but maybe they felt like they were getting him more weapons. But I think he was somebody that Belichick, I don't think it's nonsense or BS at all. I think Belichick really respected the way he carried himself and he did his business through a struggling year last year. I think Cam is kind of one of those guys, almost like Vic on the cover of a video game, where the younger generation of players worship this guy, because I saw it with Vic firsthand, and I think Cam has a little of that in him too. But everybody that I've talked to that was in camp, that watched all the throws that they were allowed to see, that the public were allowed to see, the people that cover this team, because still a lot of my friends that did, they're like, Mac was just better than Cam all season, all preseason. He was just better than him. He was just better than him. I'm not saying like Mac is going to light it up and be a Pro Bowler, although like half the quarterbacks ended up making the Pro Bowl after a bunch of guys dump out of it. But there just wasn't much of a competition. And then you have Cam screw up the COVID protocol and lose his availability, and the fact that once he was on the roster, he was going to start making millions more by just being in games. It ended up, I think, being a pretty easy football decision. And I don't think it was anything other than that. I just don't think Cam was all that good last year. I doubt he was that much better. And I think they feel like, hey, let's just give the keys to Mac, even though rookie quarterbacks usually struggle.
We got to take a quick break. We have more with Ryen Russillo and where we can find him next and what he is talking about on his elusive podcast, the Ryen Russillo podcast on the Ringer Network. Don't go anywhere, guys. This is Drinks with Binks. Subscribe to the Fubo Sports YouTube page for clips and full episodes. Follow us at Fubo Sports on all social media channels. Also available in podcast form wherever you find your favorite pods. Hey guys, we've had an awesome time drinking and binking here with Ryen Russillo from The Ringer. Ryen, where can we find you next?
I have a podcast Monday, Wednesday, and Friday on Ringer, Spotify, and usually I jump on with Bill Simmons throughout the week talking NBA. Sometimes he jumps on mine, and every now and then popping up. And I'm also working on my book, The Shepherds of San Bernardino, San Bernardino for locals. Just a lot of people don't realize there's a big shepherd culture out there. That's,
Wow.
Yeah. So we're working on the advance now, but looking forward to that release.
That's incredible. I know I wanted to talk to you more about all of your other stuff outside of sports, but I got way too into Below Deck. So I guess that is, that was number one on the priorities. Where can we follow you on social media?
At Ryen A. Russillo on Twitter, and then I think it's the same thing on Instagram, but I don't take that one as seriously. So
awesome. Okay, well, we don't take ours as seriously. Jokes we do. It is at Fubo Sports on Twitter and Instagram as well. Make sure to check out our YouTube page for this episode and a whole lot more at Fubo Sports. And until next time, bottoms up, bitches.